This is topic 7.5, Indoor Air Pollution for AP Environmental Science. All right, make sure you follow along with the learning goals or the learning targets on your study guides. The first one, I can identify major indoor air pollutants and where they come from. So indoor air pollutants are similar to outdoors, except they're indoors, and they adversely affect the quality of air within buildings and structures. Some indoor and outdoor air pollutants overlap, but some air pollutants occur uniquely indoors. So you can see on this picture the different types of air pollutants in different places in the house. In bedrooms, you have dust mites, pet dander, which are like little particles that come off of pets. In yards, pollen, herbicides, pesticides, etc. Going on. The first one you have to know about is carbon monoxide. CO comes from the incomplete combustion of fuel like natural gas in heaters, ovens, stovetops, hot water heaters. Malfunctioning appliances can cause a carbon monoxide leak, and it has no odor or color, so that can be very difficult. Which is why we have laws now saying, especially in some states, in my state, in California, we have laws that all homes need to have a carbon monoxide detector, and a lot of times they're built together. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide are built in the same unit. To understand carbon monoxide, you need to know what an asphyxiant is, because carbon monoxide is an asphyxiant, which is a gas that reduces or displaces normal oxygen concentration. Carbon monoxide can cause asphyxiation and death within minutes by binding with the hemoglobin better than oxygen. So hemoglobin is a protein on your blood that binds with oxygen and carries it to all your cells. If there's carbon monoxide, it's going to bind better, and then all your cells are starved of oxygen and you die. Carbon monoxide poisoning can happen without people in a house noticing. To fix it, you can add exhaust fans. In California, it's the law now that every home must have a carbon monoxide detector. And I just added a picture of one that you can get at a hardware store or Walmart or Target. And it's good to have, even if you're not in California. It's important to have these just to be on the safe side in your home. Okay, some other forms of indoor air pollutants. You have dust. Did you know that most dust is dead human skin cells? Weird. There's also dust mites that eat dust, and they have poop droppings and their body parts that are in dust as well. Mold and mildew that comes from fungal growth on damp organic matter, sometimes in walls of moist environments like bathrooms, kitchens, and basements. So they reproduce through something called spores, and sometimes people are allergic to mold spores. Pollen can enter your home. Some people are allergic to pollen. Some people are allergic to dust mites too. If you think you have allergies, you can go to an allergist doctor and they will test for things like being allergic to dust mites or mold or pollen. I found out I'm allergic to grasses and cedar and a little bit of cat. Okay, so going back about pollen. So pollen, remember, is how plants reproduce. The pollen is the male gamete of flowers on plants, and it can enter the home and people can be allergic to it. Volatile organic compounds, same thing as outdoor, but it's indoors. They evaporate quickly and enter a sealed building's air. And then lead can be released from leaded paint, like when it's sanded. When it's dry and nothing's wrong with it, it will not go airborne. So be careful of that on a test. Lead, in order to be an air pollutant, has to get loose somehow, like through sanding off of, if you're sanding old paint. Now, this is in homes built before the 1960s, could have lead-based paint, or maybe they don't. Okay, another one is asbestos. It's an old insulation fiber, so it was banned several decades ago. So if you have newer construction, like past the 1960s, you're not going to have asbestos in your home or buildings. But they used to use it as insulation, and they found out that when it gets loose in the air, it can cause cancer when it's inhaled, a special cancer called mesothelioma. If there's an old building with asbestos in the walls and there's no cracks or earthquakes or anything to release that asbestos, as long as it stays sealed up, it doesn't hurt anybody. Then there's radon. So radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas that occurs from the decay of uranium that's found in granite and rocks. And in some parts of the country, it's more common than others. When I lived in a different state, when we bought and sold real estate, you have to get a radon inspection because some states have radon. It gets into basements too. Where I live in California, nobody has a basement because of earthquakes, so we don't really have to test for radon because it isn't a problem, because people aren't really having exposed bedrock inside their homes or in their basements or crawl spaces, because we don't really have underground crawl spaces. We have ground, foundation, and house. There's no crawl spaces underneath because of earthquakes. And so you can see again in certain parts of the country, you're going to have higher and lower radon amounts. Where I live, it's going to be in this moderate, but again, we don't build where we have exposed bedrock, so we do not need to get radon inspections. Okay, but in other states they do, so you have to know that for the AP test because you have to know what happens all over the United States. How do you mitigate it? Mitigate means fix or prevent. Open windows when the outdoor air pollution is minimal. So if it's a nice day, so where I live, our outdoor air pollution is bad in the summer, but fine in the winter, and we have mild weather, so we can open our windows a lot during the winter, spring, and fall, and the outdoor air pollution is better than the indoor, so you let in fresh air. Don't use wood fireplaces because of the particulate matter, or only use them limitedly. Use VOC-free paint, which is easier to do now than when I started teaching this class 18 years ago. You had to specially look out for VOC-free paint. Now it's very, very common in the hardware store. Use unscented products as much as you can, and use air filters. And you can get air filters for your air conditioner, special better air filters. If you have problems with allergies, you can get higher grade air filters on your air conditioning units. But it does block airflow, so it's not as efficient, and so that's one of the drawbacks to it. In developing nations, indoor air pollution mainly stems from combustion, so indoor cooking fires. How do you reduce in these countries? You can have good ventilation. You can use a solar oven instead. Those are both ways. So I added some pictures here so you can understand what I was talking about. So here are two pictures where people are cooking indoors. They're not sealed up dwelling places. So the smoke is going out, but they're still breathing it in. And so it is the #1 cause of death from indoor air pollution in a developing country. Now, a solar oven is a device that looks like this, where you can use the power of the sun to cook something. If people have a sunny place that they can do this, then this is something that some relief organizations are giving to people in countries where this is a problem with the air pollution, to kind of help them out and not breathe as much air pollution from cooking indoors. Okay, in developed nations like the United States, indoor air pollution occurs due to tightly sealed buildings without ventilation. So we tightly seal buildings for energy efficiency, but the problem is that sometimes it doesn't let out our indoor air pollutants. Also, the use of volatile organic compounds a lot in our homes. The #1 indoor air pollutant in developed nations is cigarette smoke, so smoking indoors. In developed nations, the problem of sick building syndrome occurs, which is the buildup of toxic pollutants in weatherized spaces. That means they're all sealed up and in newer buildings. So sick building syndrome, sometimes people, like workers at an office building, get sick. People can't figure out the cause, but it's probably indoor air pollution. So better insulation and the use of chemical vapors in building materials can seal up all of that off-gassing. And people, they seal the windows. You can't open the windows in a lot of places. In my building where I work in my classroom, it's a newer building and we can't open the windows. So to get fresh air, I have to open the door. All right, and you can see here in a house the several places that can off-gas with Vox, can have particulate matter like from wood stoves, pesticides, paints, cleaning fluids, furniture, carpets, foam insulation, etc. You can pause the video and take a look at this diagram. And this is it for topic 7.5.